Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm excited to bring you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. I hope everyone is staying safe during these difficult times, but I'm sure I speak for everyone listening that it feels so good to be talking and watching sports on a regular basis. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a sports fanatic from Miami, Florida, and I became a soccer fan about 10 years ago when I found out about some crazy player named Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Probably heard of him. I looked up one of his highlights and I was hooked ever since. But enough about me. Let's get right into it. What we'll be talking about in today's show. In the first segment, we're going to be talking about the Premier League with the season officially done. I'm going to break down the season in its entirety, including Liverpool's incredible run to the title, the biggest surprises and disappointments. You know, there's plenty of those. And we'll end it with some transfer news as teams are already gearing up for the new campaign. In the next segment, we'll talk about the tournament we know and love, the Champions League. Well, I'm a PSG fan, so you guys already know that's pretty much a love-hate relationship there. But we'll get into the most exciting matchups coming up and effects COVID has had on the tournament rules that we're all used to. And I'll finish it up with knowing that we're going to have a first-time finalist in this year's tournament. And in the third segment, I'll be discussing how we'll be having a first. And in the third segment, I'll be discussing the MLS and the MLS's back tournament happening in Orlando, as there have been some crazy upsets throughout the competition. There are some intriguing matchups remaining, and we'll dive into all of them as the tournament nears the final. Of course, I'll make sure to end it with some transfer news as the MLS continues its attempt to bring in exciting talent. Trust me, you're going to want to wait to the end of this show as I give you the top 10 players in the Premier League this season. I think that'll be enough for today's show, but before we get started, we'd love for you guys to get involved on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and give us your opinions on the topics in today's show. But now, we are going to finally be getting into the first segment of today's show, which is the Premier League, guys. We all know this is the most popular and competitive league in the world, the Premier League. Like, come on. As you all know, this year has been a roller coaster ride with COVID pretty much halting sports all around the world well into the respective seasons, and that obviously includes the Premier League. I mean, honestly, I remember where I was. I mean, I'm pretty sure any sports fan would remember where they were when everything stopped. I mean, it was kind of surreal with the team the league that officially stopped it was the NBA, you know, saying that they're going to suspend the season, and it was pretty much a domino effect from there. And it was kind of surreal. I mean, I'm sure you all know, and it's nice to know that those leagues were finally able to come back and you know, set up medical procedures to make sure everybody was safe, and that definitely includes the Premier League. And I'm going to be honest, being from America, I'm extremely impressed with the way that soccer in Europe and, you know, pretty much all around the world was able to actually bring it back with little to no stoppage. I mean, obviously we all know the Bundesliga was the first one to actually come back, but then the Premier League as well, and all, you know, pretty much all top 5 leagues except for the French league who canceled their season. But honestly, the amount of testing that the Premier League did to keep itself up and running was incredible. They were consistently putting up updates like every 2 weeks on their the positive tests, obviously not giving away any information on it, But overall, it was just really nice to see them actually putting in the effort to, making sure every single person got tested. Like, it was thousands and thousands of tests for obviously the most essential personnel and obviously the players that would be playing. And I mean, there was literally, from what I saw, there was no major stoppages. I mean, the season was able to go on through and while traveling to the opposing team's home stadiums. I mean, honestly, the MLB, Major League Baseball, can learn a lot from them because, I mean, they're not even 2 weeks into their season and they're already falling apart with, games getting suspended and, players opting out. I know players opted out for the Premier League as well, but it's not this soon. It was just ridiculous. We all know this pandemic, of course, added an element of unknown to everything as clubs had to regroup for the restart and kept their players on the same page. Some finished really strong and some others did not, obviously, but that was certainly not the case for Liverpool, who ran away with this league's title as they finished ahead of second place Manchester City by a whopping 18 points. I mean, that's not, like, they already knew the season was over by December. Because, I mean, obviously Manchester City dropping so many points early on, losing games to teams like Norwich and, the Wolves. I mean, I remember that time when Mendy was trying to get the ball to go out of bounds, and, Adama Traore just pushed him out of the way and got the assist for the 2-2 tie. I mean, obviously they ended up winning the game in the end. So, I mean, Liverpool, let me just start by saying with Liverpool, they are an extremely stacked team. I mean, you can pretty much fill in the entire Premier League best 11 with Liverpool players, and you probably wouldn't get too many objections. I mean, obviously there's a few standout players from other clubs throughout the league that, showed up. But, I mean, guys like Virgil van Dyke, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Jordan Henderson, I mean, the list goes on and on. Firmino, they were just unstoppable. But, honestly, the biggest things, though, that I saw this season was the fact that Jurgen Klopp, the fact that he was just able to keep them focused even throughout this entire, pandemic and, the unknowns of it, being able to bring them together and have one of the best runs in Premier League history is as impressive as it gets, and that's why he won Manager of the Year. And when you think about it, they had 99 points to finish the year. That's second best ever in the Premier League, just behind Man City back in 2017-18. Now, we're going to be getting into a bit of the... Now, we're going to be getting into a bit of the... Sorry about that. I lost track of myself. But anyways, now we're going to be getting into a couple of the biggest surprises from this Premier League season. And right off the bat, I'd have to say Sheffield United. I mean, the fact that they made it back to the Premier League after 12 seasons away from the top flight, and they were able to finish 9th. I mean, I don't think it gets any more impressive or surprising as that. Nobody, I'm sure, had them finishing anywhere near a Europe spot. I mean, they were just a few spots away. But, I mean, are you kidding me? They were able to defeat top 6 teams like Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea. I mean, I even saw that they tied against Man United one time. I mean, it was just an overall super impressive season for Sheffield United. And don't be surprised to see them battling again next year. Another big surprise I would easily have to say was the goalkeeper Dean Henderson from Sheffield United. Easily one of their most important player, probably their most important player. I mean, he had 13 clean sheets and he won the Best Young Player of the Year award. And I'm pretty sure Manchester United are probably thinking, because he's on loan from Manchester U, that, maybe they got to bring him in, especially the way David De Gea was playing this year. And he's been playing. I mean, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, but I mean, he's been like up and down. I mean, messing up in big moments. And I mean, who knows, man? Dean Henderson could be a huge hit for them, but I'm pretty sure Sheffield United is going to want to keep him for the long haul. Another club that really impressed was Southampton. I mean, they started the season off terribly. I'm pretty sure plenty of people remember that Leicester win over them. That was like, it was like 9-0. It was ridiculous. And the fact that they didn't even get their first win well into the season after. I think it was like a month after that, they didn't get their first win. So pretty much everyone was expecting them to get relegated, but they were able to turn it all around and finish 11th. 11th. Like, when you really put that all together, it's like no surprise that they're in the biggest surprises of the Premier League season for me. But a lot of that would have to be because of Danny Ings. I mean, you got to think about that. Danny Ings, easily the comeback player of the year, just shy of the golden boot behind Jamie Vardy. But honestly, overall, that he has just impressed all around. Another big surprise easily has to be the success of the first-year managers. I mean, Frank Lampard for Chelsea and Mikel Arteta from Arsenal. I mean, like the way those guys were able to bring those teams together and, I mean, meet each other in the FA Cup final. Of course, Arteta and Arsenal were able to come on top on that one. But, I mean, honestly, all around applause for both of those managers to be able to, what am I trying to say? Bring these teams, or guide these teams. That's the word. There you go, Steve. Guide these teams through these unknown waters of, this pandemic and unbelievably weird season to have super successful years. And that includes with Chelsea having a top 4 finish and having a bid in the Champions League next year. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And you're going to be seeing some exciting transfer news for them coming up at the end of this segment. And also, I mean, who can forget Manchester United finishing top 3 in the league this year? I mean, they were like, it was before Bruno Fernandes came in. Yes, Bruno. We all know Bruno Fernandes was the linchpin to all that. But I mean, before Bruno Fernandes was there, they were well behind Leicester City for that Champions League spot, and it didn't look like they were going to get it because they were a mess. I mean, there was so many times. I mean, Solskjaer just did not have the same effect that he had last year, but Bruno Fernandes came in and just absolutely exploded for them. They got that top 3 finish, and now they look to be adding more in the summer transfer. Well, I mean, it's more like a winter fall transfer now with how the season is. But yeah, and then honestly, the last surprise to me was the fact that Man City was actually able to get their 2-year UEFA competition ban overturned. There's been a lot of backlash at that. A lot of the managers of the other top clubs in the English league have been, upset that this got overturned because the evidence seemed to be just incredible against Man City, and it looked like they were gonna, lose that. The light that was Man City. They were one of the top teams. They've been, they are still one of the top teams. They're easily the most talented, even though they didn't put it all together this year. But for them to get that ban overturned is huge for their future. It's going to mean that they can still bring in top talent that's going to actually want to play there because, now there's Europe competition to be looked forward to. But now let's get into the biggest disappointments. Yes, these are the guys that fans pulled their hair out for throughout the entire season. And I don't think there's a better person to start with than Kepa, the goalkeeper for Chelsea. I mean, he is the most expensive goalkeeper in the world, and he was benched towards the end of the season. I mean, you can tell by his immaturity on the floor that he doesn't have the respect from his defenders. And when you hear like the analytics talking after the game, it's just he doesn't have that same presence. He just doesn't, and it's super easy to tell why, honestly. And when I look at the fact that he didn't even start their FA Cup final, that pretty much shows me that Frank Lampard has lost all faith in him, and there's no surprise that he's already looked at to be shipped off at the end of the season. Well, the season's over, but to be shipped off during the transfer window. Easily Tottenham, one of the most disappointing clubs this year as well, as they made it to the Champions League final last year, I'm sure as most of you remember, but they underwhelmed after. Like, they started the season off so bad, and they sacked Pochettino, and then they brought in Mourinho. I mean, they did better with him there, but not even Mourinho was able to patch things up enough to get them into a Champions League spot. And now they're looking at a qualifying round in the Europa League. It's just, it's definitely a fall from where they were last year. A huge fall, and I mean, it's hard to really see where they're going to come. And it's honestly, when you look at, like, the biggest thing I'd look at is what they did after that Champions League final. They were trying to revamp the roster, and they signed Dembele, which is easily one of the worst signings this season, as he pretty much didn't. I mean, he didn't affect them at all. If anything, he actually made them worse. I mean, you look, and it's kind of it sucks to see, because you look at the way that they've been progressing over the last 3 seasons, and it looks really bad. Like they've just progressively gotten worse and worse. So next, I would easily say would be Everton. Everton definitely underperformed this year. I mean, they hired Carlo Ancelotti, but they still finished nowhere near a European spot. So obviously, it's just the either the culture or the way the organization is ran just is not good, because they have. I mean, honestly, as long as I've been a fan of soccer, I haven't seen anything good come out of Everton, and I mean, there's a reason for that. Now, before we finish up this segment, I want to talk about some transfer news that we got going on throughout the league, and starting with Arsenal. Easily, the biggest headline for Arsenal is that they have to keep Aubameyang. After the amazing season that he had this year, I mean, he's their captain. He helped them win that FA Cup final with those 2 goals, 2 amazing goals on top of that, and that is their number one priority. They need to keep Aubameyang for the long haul, and if they don't, I mean, you can see Arsenal falling back to their old ways of just mediocrity. But a couple of the interesting players that they're linked to include Doucouré from Watford, their midfielder, really strong defensive midfielder. I mean, he's been in transfer talks for a while now. I remember he almost went to PSG, but didn't happen. But now he's linked to Arsenal, and that would be a huge addition for them to add some great depth to that midfield, especially with things just not looking good there. I forgot what that young player's name is on their team, but things are just a mess there. And also, Bayern Munich's Coutinho is also linked to Arsenal. So I mean, it's going to be really exciting to see if they can add some solid players to their team that finished off really strong. Now, for Chelsea, honestly, I feel like Chelsea's going to have probably the most exciting transfer window, because they've already brought in Hakim Ziyech from Ajax and Timo Werner from RB Leipzig. Those are 2 incredible talents that are going to make their team way better next year, and it doesn't seem like they're done, because they're linked to defenders like Koulibaly from Napoli and Ben Chilwell from Leicester, and even goalkeeper Jan Oblak from Atletico Madrid. I mean, those are top-tier players at their positions. So if Chelsea are able to bring them in, I mean, the sky's the limit for Chelsea next year. I mean, they could easily, the fact that they finished 4th this year, I mean, they can easily challenge Liverpool and Manchester City next year with the amount of talent that they're bringing in. Now, when you look at the 2 Manchester teams, Man City, they're easily looking to boost their defense, because their offense has always been top notch. I know their defense wasn't terrible this year. They only allowed 35 goals, but overall, they need to add more there. And they have been linked to Diego Carlos from Sevilla, along with Arsenal and Liverpool. So, you got a lot of English teams looking at Diego Carlos, and Man City are really hoping to pick him up. But also, right back Sergi Roberto from Barcelona. I mean, he's been extremely strong in that Barcelona side, and I'm pretty sure Barca aren't going to want to let him go. I'm sure they'd rather let go of Semedo there, but I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see if Man City can pick those 2 up. But I mean, with the amount of money that they've been putting into transfers over the past few years, I mean, I feel like they really have to look within themselves more than anything. But I mean, only time will tell. And for Manchester United, I mean, they've been urged by fans and former players to add more depth, especially after finishing 3rd. So things are obviously looking up for them, and they've been linked to Jadon Sancho from the Jadon Sancho, however you say it, and Jack Grealish as well. Jadon Sancho's from Borussia Dortmund, and he's a Englishman, only 20 years old, and he's an exciting playmaker, someone that you can slot into that starting lineup right away with Martial and Marcus Rashford, and honestly, they would be unbelievable. I know you got guys like Greenwood there, but I mean, honestly, you can never add too much young talent, honestly. And then also, obviously, Jack Grealish, who was absolutely unbelievable this year. I mean, honestly, I'm pretty surprised I'm surprised I didn't add him to my surprise list. There you go. Because of how he was able to keep Aston Villa away from that relegation zone. I mean, he saved their season, him alone, honestly. So, wouldn't be surprised to see him finally want to look for some Champions League soccer. And, what better opportunity than to join Manchester United? Now, talking about Aston Villa, I mean, after avoiding relegation, they've received a huge €100 million transfer budget. And that's huge for manager Dean Smith. And he's recently been linked to Liverpool's backup Origi, who consistently plays well for them. I mean, he didn't get a lot of looks because obviously the amount of talent on that Liverpool squad, but he was huge in the Champions League last year. I'm sure many of you remember the incredible goals he had to help them, get that title. But overall, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Aston Villa does to try to add to that, just barely scaping by the relegation zone. And now moving on, we're going to go to Liverpool. Liverpool don't really have the funds to make a big signing. So they recently put 6 players out on the market, including Shaqiri, Lovren, who already got sent to Zenit in Russia. Is it Russian? I believe it is. Origi, Karius, Harry Wilson, and Grusic in order to build their budget. And if they could sell them all, it should sell for about $100 million combined. And if they could do that, I mean, they have already been linked to midfielder Thiago Alcantara from Bayern Munich. That would be a huge addition to an already stacked club. I mean, I don't think he would get regular minutes in terms of like starting all the time, but just to be able to add a player of his caliber to your depth is, I mean, honestly, it's kind of scary to even think about. But yeah, that's going to finish it up for our Premier League segment of this show. And please stay tuned as we're going to be talking about, like I've already said, the tournament we all love, the Champions League, guys. So make sure to stay tuned and get ready for Champions League football.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Guys, welcome back to the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host. All right, guys, well, welcome back to the GSMC Podcast. In the last segment, we talked everything Premier League from, the obviously amazing title run from Liverpool to all the biggest disappointments and surprises, and obviously ended it with some transfer news. But now we're going to be talking about the Champions League. And getting into the Champions League, we are going to be talking about the matchups coming up With the round of 16 not being finished, obviously, with COVID halting things there, we got Man City versus Real Madrid, with Man City having a 2-1 aggregate lead so far. That's going to be probably the most exciting, it is the most exciting matchup left in the round of 16. With those two juggernauts going at it, I mean, you actually already have some COVID positive tests from Real Madrid's side. However, it doesn't seem like that's going to really be an issue for the UEFA competition, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if Real Madrid, especially after winning La Liga, so they don't have to worry about that anymore, they're going to have all of their focus into this Champions League campaign. So keep an eye out for that second leg. That's probably going to be one of the most exciting games of the year. Next, we're going to have Barcelona versus Napoli. Now, Barcelona is ahead on away goals as they're tied 1-1 on aggregate. But honestly, the way Napoli has been playing this year, I mean, they've been kind of a little inconsistent. But the fact that they are in the Champions League, I know things didn't work out for them in their domestic league with Juventus obviously winning and Lazio getting second place, but they have a chance here. I mean, they're tied 1-1. I know Barcelona and the thing is, Barcelona is a wreck right now. I mean, with all the talks with Messi wanting to leave, or at least, the rumors, of course, of Messi, thinking about going at the end of the season and them not winning La Liga. I mean, of course, that's going to just make them motivated to win. But then when you see things like Arthur already, being agreed to go to Juventus, literally not wanting to show up for Barca, that's really not a good sign. Not just for the club, but like just overall, like everybody on the team, because it's like it makes you feel like there's not a lot of continuity there. And I mean, this is a really big chance for Napoli to make noise and really come out on top in this second leg. And and you can't forget they're going to be in the Camp Nou. I mean, there really isn't that much of a home court advantage anymore. So it's really hard to really say that that's going to have a big factor. But Barcelona players, or Barca in general, they do always play better at home. And Camp Nou, it's legendary for a reason. So overall, it's going to be a really tough matchup for either squad. And now next, we're going to be talking about the matchup that's pretty much already done. But I mean, who knows? Chelsea versus Bayern. Bayern lead that by 3-0 on aggregate. Sorry, I wasn't sure where I was going there. But not only that, Chelsea just finished losing Pulisic in the FA Cup final. And Azpilicueta also had a hamstring injury, so they might have both essential players to their success out for the Champions League second leg. And being down 3-0, even with them, it wasn't expected to, do anything because they're still really young. And in a competition like the Champions League, you need, established talent to really help you get along. And they're not going to have any of that. So, I mean, it's going to be really hard to see Chelsea pulling that one out. But again, who knows? It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Chelsea versus Bayern second leg, that'll be a really interesting one. Now next, Juventus versus Lyon. Now, this one is probably going to be going the other way with Lyon leading 1-0 on aggregate. But honestly, that's what makes it even more interesting because you got Juve, who just won their league as well. And, continuing that ridiculous dominance of Serie A. And they got probably the best player in the world in Cristiano Ronaldo. And as we all know from years past, Cristiano Ronaldo, when he needs to show up for his club, he shows up. Do I need to remind you of the World Cup with that Portugal versus Spain matchup? I mean, I'm pretty sure I don't have to say anything else other than that. But yeah, Lyon, they've surprised people this year. I mean, they were pretty much neck and they weren't neck and neck with PSG in the French league. I mean, PSG just has they monopolized that league, of course, unless they have Mbappe on Monaco. But Lyon have had a really underrated season this year. I mean, and you look at that, they're leading 1-0 on aggregate, but they still have a long way to go there. And I really doubt they're going to keep Juventus on a clean sheet for a second game in a row. I highly doubt it. Expect to see some ridiculous highlights from Cristiano Ronaldo, and I do expect Juventus to get through on that one. But, of course, anything can happen, and Lyon have proven doubters wrong plenty of times already this season. Now, that's done with the round of 16. Of course, so that you guys know the potential matchups between those teams, but like whoever wins in Real Madrid-Man City match will be taking on Juventus versus Lyon. And obviously, I'm hoping, just because I'm a huge fan of just top matchups, I want to see Real Madrid or Man City. It really doesn't matter there against Juve, obviously. And honestly, aside from that, what am I talking about? Let's get Real Madrid versus Juve. How nice would it be to see Cristiano Ronaldo versus his old team in the Champions League that he helped win 3 straight titles with? That would be unbelievable. The storylines would be all over the place, and yeah, that would be awesome. But the next one would be Barca and Napoli against Chelsea and Bayern. So we already know, like I said, Bayern probably making it through. And if Barca can make it through, there's a lot of history there with Barca and Barcelona, Barca and Bayern Munich. So it'll be really interesting to see which team comes out on top there. And until we know, I can't really go into much detail there. But yeah, those are going to be the two matchups on one side of the bracket. So you have a lot of top level clubs on that side of the bracket. So now that moves us on to the other side of the bracket, which have Atalanta, which have been a ridiculous, explosive team this year. They're one of easily the most exciting team to watch in Serie A. I know that means you're saying that over Juventus. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. Atalanta have been ridiculous this year. They are super exciting to watch. They've been super exciting to watch. And don't be surprised, because they're going up against PSG. So don't be surprised if you see them upset them. PSG, yeah, they've had so many ridiculous bottles in this competition. So, I'm not surprised when I'm looking at all these reports and they're saying, don't be surprised when Atalanta destroys PSG. It would be a catastrophe. But yeah, like I'm saying, don't be surprised, because especially the PSG just recently lost Mbappe to an ankle injury, a really nasty one too. But I did see reports that said he might be able to play. It's like a 90% chance, but I've seen that before, and then he doesn't play because, why would they want to risk it? Why would he want to risk it? So, we got to wait to see that. But, even without Mbappe, PSG is so stacked. I've said it, this is probably the most stacked team that PSG has had in terms of depth and just talent overall. So they need to capitalize on this opportunity that they have. Because if they were to beat Atalanta, they would take on this next matchup, which is RB Leipzig versus Atletico Madrid. Now, RB Leipzig absolutely stunned Tottenham, who were, like I already said, a finalist last year. And Atletico also took out the champions, Liverpool. The way that they were able to just dismantle them, it was hard to believe, but it did happen. And Atletico, because of any club that I can think of, I've never really had more respect for any club other than Atletico, because they have the disadvantage of being behind Barcelona and Real Madrid in La Liga. But the fact that they're able to be as consistent as they are and be able to, win the La Liga a couple times, and their defense, how they've been able to be so consistent there. It's no surprise that they are in the Champions League again in the quarterfinal. But I would not be surprised to see them win it all this year. Because like I said in the beginning of the show, this bracket here, Atalanta, PSG, RB Leipzig, and Atletico Madrid, neither have made it to the Champions League final. So that means this year we are going to be getting a first-time finalist with one of these teams making it. And honestly, I feel like that's really exciting. I know I'm a PSG fan, so, I'm excited because we have a great opportunity here to take out these teams. But same thing for the other three clubs. I mean, they all have an exciting and really big opportunity here to put a stamp in their club's history. So now let's talk about the biggest differences in this year's tournament due to COVID-19. Of course, we all know all the games are going to be played behind closed doors, and various medical procedures have been placed to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Like I've already told you guys about the success of the domestic leagues, how they've been able to keep things, together and safe for the long haul. But aside from that, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and final will all be played as a final 8 straight knockout tournament, and will be played on 2 neutral sites in Portugal. So that means that's a huge difference. I mean, the fact that there's no longer 2 legs for these quarterfinal and semifinal matches, I mean, it adds a whole new element to this fight. It makes each game obviously way more important than ever before. I mean, because the intensity is going to be up, like in every single game. You're probably going to see a lot of back and forth arguing. You're going to see a lot of aggressiveness in these games because they're all knockouts. They're all knockout games, and in case of a tie, all matches like in any regular game in a domestic, in any regular game in a knockout competition, they're going to be going to extra time and then penalty kicks. Another big difference that has been added for all UEFA competitions that you guys have probably already seen in your domestic leagues is that they are now allowing 5 substitutions. That adds a huge element. That means depth means even more than ever. Of course, next season they're going to bring it back down to 3. So that's only for this season, and the necessary changes needed because of the pandemic. But I mean that might not seem as much, just 2 more substitutions, but it is a huge, huge difference. And like I said, makes depth so much more important for any team. Another thing that they allow teams to add 3 new players on their A list for the remainder of the season. However, these players do need to have been eligible from the last registration deadline. My apologies, I'm getting my words mixed up. Another thing is that all these matches are going to be played literally right after the other. Like the quarterfinal matches are going to be played from August 12th to August 15th. And then whoever wins on those games have to get ready for the next match, because then the semifinals are going to be played August 18th and 19th. And then after that, you get the final on August 23rd. So there's literally no time to make a plan. I mean, there's like a couple days, but I mean, there's going to be some training on those days. And to make up a plan and to, scout your opponents out. I mean, this is going to be, honestly, some people say that there's going to be an asterisk on this season's Champions League. And honestly, I feel like, sure, there might be an asterisk. The fact that this is going to be probably the toughest Champions League for somebody to win. I say that. Same thing for any other league that, is going on right now. It's this, the fact that there is a pandemic going on during all this, you got to think it's not just these, sure, these guys are playing games and, for money, and, they're making a lot of money and they're enjoying themselves. But I mean, all these guys have families at home. They have other things that they have to worry about. I know people say, oh, bro, they're making millions. They don't got to worry about stuff. But, I mean, they're all human. So, absolutely, they got to worry. So, this is 100% going to be more difficult, in my opinion, than any other Champions League season. Bar none. And so now, going on to that, we're continuing to the differences going on. All the original locations, because since the final, obviously semifinal, quarterfinal, all going to be played on neutral sites. All the original locations for the finals will be pushed back a year. So there won't be any problems with, like Istanbul was supposed to be the location for the final this year. Now they're going to be the location for the 2021 season. And some teams have reported, like I already said, like Real Madrid have already reported positive tests, and same thing with Sevilla. But UEFA have already said that they believe it won't affect the club ties. with Sevilla being in Europa League and Real Madrid, like we already know, in the Champions League. The qualifying rounds for next season will be single elimination, and the draw will determine which stadium is played in. That's probably going to be the only difference for next year. Just to kind of shorten, I'm assuming just to shorten the games, shorten the time to get to the next phase of the competition. The only exception is going to be the Champions League playoff. Everything else will stay the same. Now, that's going to finish up my Champions League segment. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. But now you guys got to make sure you stick around for the next segment, as I'm going to be talking about the MLS and the MLS's back tournament, which has actually featured some pretty interesting, really high level competition. I'm really surprised by it. So make sure to stay tuned for that.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Show. In the last segment, we discussed Champions League, the matchups coming up, the differences that COVID has made on the competition. And now we're going to be talking about the MLS and the MLS's back tournament. So first, I just want to talk about how the MLS, we all know that they, maybe not everybody knows, but they don't start at the same as the domestic leagues in Europe, or pretty much any league around the world. I mean, other than like the North America and Mexico and all that, but they start at a different time. And when they were about to start up, that was when COVID was really hitting, and they didn't even get their season underway. So all that preparation in the off season, getting things going, like my Inter Miami squad, trying to bring in players, trying to get things ready for their inaugural season. For that just to blow up in their face and not be able to start was obviously a travesty. It really sucked, and I'm sure it hurt any club in the MLS. But with things as bad, as they are in the US, because the way they're not able to really contain things, the MLS had to rely on a contained environment. So that's why the MLS's back tournament was created. It's a bubble. It's a bubble in Orlando, Florida, at the Wide World of Sports. It's honestly it was probably the most important thing, what am I trying to say? It's easily the most important part about this is the fact that they're able to keep their players and staff safe, because there was really no guarantee with traveling around in North America where COVID is hitting like crazy. There really was no way to be able to ensure the safety of any of these players. So they had to do this, at least to get some MLS going, And the only thing, for the most part, things have been under control in the bubble. The only exception being Dallas FC and Nashville SC being the only teams to withdraw, because of a COVID outbreak within their organization. I remember Dallas FC had 10 positive tests and had to bow out, and Nashville had about 5 before, eventually getting a couple more and then having to bow out as well. Which I feel it sucks for Nashville specifically because they're also an expansion team this year, and they're not going to be able to experience soccer for at least a little while now. Because I do know that that the MLS has decided to bring back the regular season, I believe, at the end of August. But still, to be preparing for a season the way because there's so much that goes into an expansion team, of course, and for them not to be able to see their product on the floor, I think they've only played like 2 games, is devastating, of course. Now, this season, it hasn't gone on without a hitch. The MLS is back tournament, because like in any sport, there's players opting out to play everywhere. And, there are some key players from the MLS that have already opted out, including Carlos Vela of LAFC. He's probably top 3 players in the MLS right now. And for him not to be there, it was a huge hit for the MLS. MLS Defender of the Year from last year, Ike Opara. I hope I'm saying his name out from Minnesota United. He hasn't really hurt Minnesota United, as you'll know extremely soon, as you'll find out really soon. But then also 5 players from the Vancouver Whitecaps opted out, including Lucas Cavallini and Freddie Montero. When a team, the roster wasn't good to begin with for the Vancouver Whitecaps, so to lose 5 essential pieces to the team, they were pretty much they're pretty much coming into this team as one of the worst in the competition, and it showed as they barely put up a fight. But then you also see Real Salt Lake defender Nedum Onuoha. It's the tough name. But also number 1 overall super draft pick, Robbie Robinson from Inter Miami. So you got some extremely talented people not making it to the tournament. And obviously you would think that means a drop in competition or a drop in, a drop in competition. And no, that's definitely not the case, as this tournament has been extremely exciting to watch, compelling games back and forth in the group stage, and of course now in the knockout rounds. But now some of the biggest news of this tournament, top teams such as Atlanta, New York Red Bulls, DC United, and LA Galaxy, man, what's wrong with me? All top teams in the MLS were all knocked out in the group stage. Obviously, that was a huge surprise to everybody, but one of the non-surprises was the fact that my team, Inter Miami, were knocked out. However, being the first MLS team ever to lose their first 5 games, and with the amount of money that they've spent to build their inaugural roster, oh man, it's just a failure. There's no other way to put it. I'm sure Beckham has a plan to turn this around, but man, it's just hard not to look at that and just shake your head. But one good note there is that each of those games were only lost by 1 goal. Only lost by 1 goal. So they've been in those games. But I'm done being a fan there. Another big thing now on the other side of things, the Columbus Crew have easily been the biggest surprise in the group stage. Of course, now they lost in the first round to Minnesota United because now they're looking like the Cinderella story. But they were the only team in the group stage to win all 3 games. And on top of that, they did not allow a single goal. Like, that is pure dominance in every way, shape or form. But like I said, they couldn't keep that momentum going as they lost in penalties to Minnesota United, who now look like a powerhouse. Now, I know I said Minnesota United was the Cinderella story, but that's because I forgot about Orlando City. Are you kidding me? Orlando City, who have not been able to make the playoffs in their history yet, came into this tournament as one of the worst, considered one of the worst, or at least, definitely in the bottom half of the teams here. And where are they now? They are 2 games away from a CONCACAF Champions League berth. Their first ever, of course. And not only did they, they did really well finishing top of their group, but then they beat the Montreal Impact in the first round, and then had the game of the tournament, in my opinion, the game of the tournament against LAFC, who were considered the favorites, beat them in penalties. Nani getting that last goal. You could tell by the way the players were reacting to, that win, how much it meant to them. And that's all you really want to see. You want to see, these successes. You want to see all these players, enjoying themselves. And that is exactly what Orlando City is doing as the home team there at the Orlando Bubble. Now, the remaining matchups coming up, there's only 4 teams left. I mean, we're pretty much at the end. But you got Minnesota United versus Orlando City SC. The 2 surprises of the tournament. Nobody expected them to be here. But one will get a chance to make the final and have a huge boost for the rest of their season. It would be either club's first time in the Champions League as well. Like obviously I already said about Orlando City, but same thing for Minnesota United. I mean, this would be huge for them. I mean, and pretty much the same thing as what's going on in the Champions League. You're going to get a first-time finalist. So definitely a lot of, exciting times going on all around in the soccer world. And now on the other side of the bracket, we got the Philadelphia Union versus the Portland Timbers. The best 2 teams remaining, in my opinion. The Timbers have the most experience. They've had so much success in such a short time in the MLS. They've only been there for about 10 years, but they already won the MLS Cup in 2015, and they finished the top of the Western Conference twice. Not a lot of teams that have only 10 years under their belt can say that, but I have to think that Philadelphia will continue their amazing run because they have so much great young talent in midfielders, Brendan Aronson and defender Mark McKenzie and striker Sergio Santos, who had a ridiculous goal against the New England Revolution in the first round of the tournament. I mean, you got to go and look at that. I mean, he hit it, to get the ball in front of him, he hit it with his thigh, and he had such a small angle, still able to put it over the goalkeeper just under the post. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, and that little dance that he had afterwards, it was just great to see, Sergio Santos get in that goal. But then not only do they have that young talent, but then they mix in, some solid veterans with Alejandro Bedoya. I mean, if you don't know who that is, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he's been really kicking, has really been doing well in the MLS, and is one of the guys that you look to. Any MLS team would want on their roster. Any MLS team. But now let's get into some transfer news. As Inter Miami, who's always in the transfer market, has put in a bid for Luis Suarez and Willian. Now, we already know Willian has rejected that lucrative deal from the Inter Miami club. But Luis Suarez, I mean, it's still yet to be determined. But I mean, I'm pretty sure he's not going to join yet. I mean, there's always been so much noise with Inter Miami wanting to bring in top talent. They've been linked to guys like Messi, Neymar, Ronaldo. I mean, the cream of the crop, let's just say. But they just haven't been able to do that this season. I mean, the best guy that they brought in so far was Rodolfo Pizarro from the Liga MX. And, I mean, he's solid, gives you, a good creator in the midfield. But, I mean, he's not that superstar that's just going to win you games. That's what Inter Miami was pretty much promising their fans, promising me. I mean, let's be honest. But we have not gotten that yet, unfortunately. Now, but moving on, Atlanta United are looking to add a defensive midfielder to their roster. I mean, they have one of the best attacking units with Joseph Martinez. Unfortunately, with him getting injured, but him being easily the best striker in the MLS. I feel like their offense is really, really good. So there really is no surprise that they're trying to add to that defense. And they've been linked to Monterrey's Jonathan Gonzalez and Boca Juniors' Sebastian Perez. Now, both of these players would be excellent additions to this team. I mean, and would add good depth to the squad. But it's yet to be seen if they're going to be able to complete these signings. Now, there is also some young, interesting talent that's trying to get lured into the MLS, with the Columbus Crew and DC United interested in 19-year-old Santiago Jimenez from the Liga MX side, Cruz Azul. Now, I feel like Santiago Jimenez, I mean, at 19 years old, he's already getting play on that squad. I mean, it's impressive when you got a young player, a player as young as him, already getting regular time on a professional team. That's always going to raise eyebrows, but the thing is, that's also going to raise transfer market value. So it's yet to be seen. Same thing with with how I was saying about Atlanta United, if the Columbus Crew or DC United can bring him in. But I mean, he's got a lineage of great players, as his father played in Liga MX for years and is a legend there. So, to bring in Santiago Jimenez would be huge, not just for those two clubs, but for the MLS as a whole. But moving on, LA Galaxy are interested in bringing in Javier Pastore from Roma. I mean, Javier Pastore is a midfielder from Roma that is such a great playmaker. He's so great with the ball. He's a great dribbler. He knows how to attack offenses. He knows what he needs to do when he gets into the final third. And coming into a club like a club like LA Galaxy, which always looks to bring in big signings, would be a great step in his career. I mean, I know it's, the MLS, everyone always looks at it as, you're going to a trash league, but honestly, they've been on the up for the past few seasons, for the past few years. And it really would be a great step for Javier Pastore, especially since, he's already kind of not falling off, but, he's not really getting as much attention from top clubs. So to go to LA Galaxy, he'd be one of their best players, and he'd be super essential to whatever they create offensively. That would be a huge add, and I would really love to see Javier Pastore inside the MLS. And I'm not just saying that because he was on PSG for a few years. I mean, when he was there, he was really exciting to watch also. But overall, it's going to be really exciting to see not just Javier Pastore, but just talent overall being added into the MLS as a whole. But that's going to be it for the MLS and the MLS is Back tournament. But make sure to stay tuned, because you guys already know what we have coming up at the end of this break. We have the top 10 Premier League players of the 2019-2020 season. I'm super excited to bring this list to you guys, so just make sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you then.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Before we get into the top 10 players in the Premier League this season, welcome back. If you guys were here before, if you guys weren't here before, in the last segment we talked about the MLS and the MLS is Back tournament, pretty much how they've been able to go around the whole COVID-19 pandemic and have a really solid tournament. And of course, then we added in some transfer news at the end. But now, to recap, to finish off this show, we are going to be talking about the top 10 players in the Premier League this season. And I'm going to go from 10 to 1. And of course, I'm sure you guys know, there's going to be a few Liverpool players on this team. Because like I've said before, we could pretty much fill a Premier League best 11 with Liverpool players, and there would not be much objection to it. But just starting off our list at number 10, I'm going to put in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang from Arsenal. I mean, this guy was their captain. I mean, he became their captain eventually, but he should have been from the start. And he's easily their most essential player this season. I mean, he had 22 goals and 3 assists, and that doesn't even tell the whole story about him. I mean, the fact that he's such a hard worker in terms of making runs and getting into position for his players to find him, for his playmakers to find him. And I'm not going to lie, what his performances in the FA Cup final gave him that nudge to get to the 10th best spot in my list. I mean, he was great before that and was going to be considered, top 15, maybe even top 12. But for him to, lead this team, which, I mean, honestly, I feel like is kind of a mess because of, Nicola Pepe not getting much work there. I mean, just that he underwhelmed immensely after that 72 million euro transfer from Lille in the France league. But I mean, and then you got Lacazette, who was another guy that was kind of supposed to be matched with him, but Aubameyang shined over all of them. I mean, I knew that he was the better talent out of any of those players, but he showed everybody this season that he is the best player on that team, and hopefully he's there to stay. I mean, Arsenal need to find a way to be able to keep this guy. Like I said in the beginning of this show, if they lose him, I mean, they're pretty much going to be back to mediocrity. No question about it. So, I mean, Aubameyang in at number 10, solid spot. And so now let's move on to number 9 with Bruno Fernandes of Manchester United. I know he barely played this season. I mean, he didn't even get half of the games in. He only appeared in 14 games. But when you consider the turnaround that Manchester United had from pretty much the way people are putting it is before Bruno, after Bruno. That is literally how different Manchester United was playing from, before they brought in Bruno Fernandes. I mean, in 14 appearances, just look at it. In 14, they lost 0 times. They did not lose once he joined the squad. And they won 9 of those games. 9 wins, 5 draws, 0 losses. Bruno Fernandes is undefeated in the Premier League, guys. Yeah. Bruno Fernandes is undefeated in the Premier League. And then he's not just, there and helping with the passing. And he's got 8 goals and 7 assists. And not to mention 2 Player of the Month awards. So pretty much the 2 months he played, he was the best player in the Premier League. So, I mean, I feel like, the accomplishments he had, individually and as a club, he is, in my opinion, the best player on Manchester United right now. And when you're talking about guys that are on that team like Paul Pogba, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial, Harry Maguire. Oh, I can't believe I even said that. But Bruno Fernandes, by far, head and shoulders above everybody on that team, and easily the best signing of the season in the Premier League, by far. So, Bruno Fernandes is a hell of a player, is one heck of a player, and just get ready to see what Manchester United has to bring for next season, because he is going to be an intricate part of that team. Probably going to be starting every single game. Don't doubt that. And let's see if he can stay undefeated next year. But now, moving on to number 8 is probably my favorite player on this list. I know it's going to be a weird name, but Danny Ings of Southampton. I mean, what this guy has been able to overcome in his career, the ridiculous amounts of injuries, failing at Liverpool, mainly because of injuries, and people pretty much writing him off everywhere. Danny Ings came in this season and scored 22 goals. One shy of Jamie Vardy's 23 for the Golden Boot. And when you look at, out of those 22 goals, only one was a penalty. Only one. He's easily the comeback player of the year. And for him to help Southampton get into the 11th spot in the Premier League, I mean, hopefully they can add some more pieces around him so that he can really, show what he's got on a top-level club. But yeah, Danny Ings, I mean, it's unbelievable what he was able to do this season. I mean, I say he's my favorite because, I mean, when you see that kind of story and you see what it takes so much perseverance to be able to overcome what he's overcome, from nobody expected him to do anything. I mean, Liverpool pretty much just let him go. He was sold for like 12 million euros. That's nothing. For a guy that's almost winning a Golden Boot for you, I mean, Danny Ings by far deserves to be on a top 10 list in any Premier League list that you see out there. If he's not, it's a travesty. And, I mean, I'm excited to see what he has to do for an encore next year. But yeah, now moving on to number 7, we have the first Liverpool player on this list, Mo Salah. I know some people might say, how's Mo Salah this low? I mean, he's easily been the most influential player in Liverpool since his arrival. I mean, he arrived 3 years ago, and before that, I mean, I know they were, like solid club. They were always considered like top 6, one of those top 6 top clubs in the Premier League, but they were always underwhelming, kind of like how Everton is now. I mean, even though Everton is way worse than what the Liverpool was, so that's actually kind of a messed up comparison. But, Mo Salah, I mean, he had 19 goals and 10 assists. So, I mean, he's doing it all for Liverpool. He's easily the best dribbler on the team. I mean, the way he's able to create with his feet and like the slight movements with his body. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and obviously the pace is there. I mean, I didn't even have to say that, but there's nobody else that really wows me with their goals as much as Salah does. And, the fact that he was able to just continuously be a solid player for Liverpool and for a team that has as much talent as they are, he, always shines above them. And honestly, a side note, I think it's so great how, Mo Salah, an Egyptian player getting so much love from England fans. I mean, I've seen that so many times where that there's racism all over this sport, and just to see people embrace him is, low-key just amazing to me. Of course, that's not the reason he made number 7, but Mo Salah just had another unbelievable season, and don't be surprised if he just comes out and does it again. But now, moving on to number 6, we talking about the Golden Boot, Jamie Vardy. Finished with 23 goals and 5 assists. I mean, this man ages like a fine wine. I mean, he is 33 years old. 33 years old. I mean, I'm not saying that's old for all you, 30 plus listeners out there. I'm not saying that's old, but in terms of soccer, I mean, you're not supposed to be getting better as you age in that direction. You're not. It's just not the way it works. But Jamie Vardy has found a way to just continue to improve. I mean, obviously he exploded onto the scene when Leicester City was able to win the Premier League title a few years ago. I mean, honestly, that's probably the most shocking thing ever in terms of just in sports in general. I mean, it's got to be up there with, the top in that discussion. But yeah, Jamie Vardy, just, a Leicester legend, continues to improve for them and just keep them in the top of the Premier League. I mean, I feel like that doesn't get spoken about enough. The fact that Leicester City has been able to, stay relevant even after that championship season. I mean, so many people So many clubs, I would be, you wouldn't be surprised that you see them up there not win, because that doesn't happen. But in 2, 3, 4 range, but then they just drop off the next season. And then that's it. They don't talk about them again. But Leicester City and Jamie Vardy have been able to stay relevant well past that championship season. And, honestly, good for them, man. You always love to see those small clubs be able to really, change the narrative about them. And, they're no small club anymore, I'll tell you that. Now, moving on to number 5. We're going to be in the top 5 now, so these are going to be the top players. I feel like after Jamie Vardy, this actually takes a bit of a leap in terms of talent. So at number 5, we have Trent Alexander-Arnold, right back for Liverpool. He had 4 goals and 13 assists this season. People are starting to call him the Beckham 2.0. I feel like that's a bit of a disrespect, but Trent Alexander-Arnold is a ridiculous talent. He's only 20 years old, I believe, or 21. Are you kidding me? The fact he actually, those 13 assists that he had this season broke his own record from last season of 12 by a defender in the Premier League. He's pretty much fighting himself for best right back in the world. And he, in my opinion, is the best creator for that Liverpool squad. The crosses that that's pretty much his entire highlight reel. You can just go and look at Trent Alexander-Arnold's crosses, and it's just ridiculous. The way he's able to pinpoint players from a ridiculous distance, and, he's unbelievable. And the fact that he's only 20 years old is scary for the rest of the world. Liverpool have to hope that they can hold on to this guy because, he is unbelievable. I think I've said that enough times. So for you guys to really realize that this kid is, the next best thing. Honestly. So yeah, Trent Alexander comes in at Trent Alexander-Arnold. There you go. Let's not butcher his name now, guys. Comes in at number 5. Now, number 4. These are the top 4 guys. These top 4 guys are all in consideration for the Player of the Year. So we're going up another tier. I feel like Trent Alexander is in a tier of his own, and then we got another tier above that. And it's going to have these 4 guys in it. But number 4, we got Sadio Mane of Liverpool. He had 18 goals and 7 assists. This guy was all over the place for Liverpool. I know he's an attacker. He's always in that front 3 with Firmino and Mo Salah. But out of those 3 guys, none of them work as hard as Sadio Mane. He tracks back from box to box. He's there defending. He's there getting tackles. He's able to, the way he's able to open up space for his Liverpool squad with his runs and his pace. The guy's on another level in terms of just being able to create for himself. Him and Mo Salah are very close, but I feel like the impact that Sadio Mane had on Liverpool's team as a whole was just way more. It's just, you have to watch the games to really know. That's the best I can tell you, because the stats aren't going to say it all. They really won't, especially for the guy coming up next. But man, Sadio Mane he deserves at least a few considerations for Player of the Year. He could inch in and get it, but I feel like the next 3 guys are a bit more deserving in that side, on that factor. And for number 3, we're going to be talking about the most surprising guy in the Liverpool squad to have an impact on this league title. Their captain, Jordan Henderson. In 30 appearances, they only lost 1 time. They only lost once and had 27 wins. So, they were, because Liverpool in total, I've already talked about 5 guys in this top 10. They're extremely talented. They have talent up and down the board. But what Jordan Henderson gives this team is different from just on the field. He's an amazing midfielder. His defense was on point. His passing was on point. He had 4 goals and 5 assists, so he didn't really impact straight on the score line. But that's not the type of player that Jordan Henderson is. He's the leader, the man, the leader of men. I mean, the guy that you look to help you out in pretty much any situation that you're in. And, I mean, he was able to really change this team every single time he was on the field. I mean, you could see the difference, the composure of the players whenever Jordan Henderson wasn't there. You know, he was like the glue that kept it all together. I mean, would they still have won the league if he wasn't there? I mean, honestly, I don't think so. I really don't think so. Because just like I was saying about Man City earlier in the show, where, you know, they just didn't take advantage of certain situations when they were like up on a bunch of teams. They gave up leads. A guy like Jordan Henderson would have changed that narrative. You know, that's the kind of guy that a team like Man City needs, and that's the guy that Liverpool has. And, I mean, it's unbelievable, like, kind of just like Danny Ings, where people were doubting him. Jordan Henderson was beyond doubted. Nobody expected him to, you know, really have that big of impact on this team. And from when they signed him, I believe it was like, 10 years ago. I forgot when he was signed, but I believe it was about 10 years ago that Jordan Henderson was signed by Liverpool, and he's stayed in the club, and he's now a legend in the club as he's led them to their first title in 30 years. I mean, are you kidding me? 30 years? I mean, it was honestly a due for Liverpool, as they've been one of the most exciting teams around the world. I mean, winning Champions League last year. But yeah, Jordan Henderson was, in my opinion, the key piece to them winning the title. Of course, I got another Liverpool player coming up next who, you know, is just considered one of the best in the entire world in terms of talent and essential to the club. But Jordan Henderson, I mean, you can't doubt him anymore. Nobody can say anything bad about him. And he could, he even won the FFP Player of the Year. So I believe it's the media who is choosing Player of the Year. Don't count me on that, but he won the award for Premier League Player of the Year of FFP. And for that to be the case, I mean, he obviously had a huge impact on this Liverpool squad. But now, next up, we have the best defender probably in the entire world. You know, scratch that. Best defender in the entire world. I'm going to say it with some confidence. We got Virgil Van Dyke. Not only is he one of the top defenders in the entire world. God, why do I keep saying that? Not only is he the top defender in the entire world, he's one of the best defenders that the Premier League has seen since probably Rio Ferdinand. I mean, this guy this season, I mean, not going to have a lot on the stat line. I mean, he had 5 goals and 3 assists. I mean, that's not bad for a defender. But I'm talking, like, the biggest stat that really epitomizes how much Virgil van Dijk means to this team. He played every single minute of this title-winning season. He is only the 5th player ever to play every single minute of a title-winning season. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how important he was, I don't know what will. But you know, you just have to give it to him. And then when you add the fact that he didn't really have a second center back. I mean, I know he had Lovren there. There's, you know, but they would always, there was like in and out with other players, but there was no continuity there. I feel like Virgil van Dijk is Liverpool's defense. Of course, he has some amazing, fullbacks in Robertson and Trent Alexander Arnold. That doesn't even need to be, that needs to be said, that he obviously has great talent there. But in terms of the center backs, without Virgil van Dijk, Liverpool would not be where they are now. They just would not. So, yeah, Virgil van Dijk comes in at number 2. And if it wasn't for this next guy, who is, in my opinion, the best Premier League player by far, he would be my number 2. I feel like this guy should have won the Player of the Year last year, over Virgil van Dijk. But, I mean, it happens. But let me just get into it. Number 1, we got Kevin De Bruyne. the Belgian midfielder who, magician. This guy does it all. He had 13 goals and 20 assists, which ties a Premier League record. He was unbelievable before the restart, like when the season was suspended because of the pandemic, and he was just as good after. He just doesn't miss a beat. I remember the last game of the season, he had 2 goals and an assist, or a goal and 2 assists, just to add to his amazing season. And if he doesn't win Player of the Year, honestly, there's something wrong with the voting committee. There just is. I understand that, Liverpool were just head and shoulders above, but that's because the team overall, just was so good together that, nothing can be stopped. Kevin De Bruyne was, I'm not going to say a one-man show, because they also have amazing talent with Raheem Sterling, Bernardo Silva, David Silva. The list goes on and on. So there's obviously so much talent on that side. Sergio Aguero, come on, I can't miss that one. But none are as essential to Man City's success as Kevin De Bruyne. What can I say, man? He's such an unbelievable player, and if he doesn't win, it would just be a travesty. So, yeah, Kevin De Bruyne comes in at number 1, the best player in the Premier League this season, and I'm pretty sure you guys have a list just like this one. It should have a list pretty similar to mine. But yeah, that's gonna end today's show. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really do have so much fun talking sports with you guys, and just stay tuned for some way more exciting stuff. I'm gonna be coming at you guys. So thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.